Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com with another episode of the Steelers Preview. The triumphant trio returns, and holy cow, we hope the Steelers finally win a flipping game this week. Losing stinks. We all know that. The Steelers are 11-2. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff tonight. But first, we got to get through this is breaking news. If you're watching live on YouTube or on Facebook, we have an updated injury report. Steelers PR department just sent out that one Bryan Anthony Davis, who was a full participant in practice on Thursday, he's been downgraded to they basically made him limited, and they're not sure about his availability this week. Bryan, what happened? Walk us through the injury and tell us what's your prognosis, and are you going to be able to play on Monday?
You know what? I am going to be there for the post-game show. I'm going to be there all weekend. I am going to be there for the game too. I have a scratched cornea, and of all things, I scratched it on a Christmas tree.
Could you give us a play-by-play of how this happened?
Yeah, so I let my daughter wanted to get. We were working at the Christmas tree lot on Saturday, and she wanted to get this little tree. It's probably about 4 feet tall. And I decided to let her get it, and we were having trouble with the base because it's a smaller tree, and we've got base for big trees. So I decided today that we haven't had a chance to decorate it. I was going to try to rig it together so I could get it to stand up straight. So I got all this other wood. I was all proud of myself being Mr. Handyman, because my wife tells everybody he's not handy, and that offends me more than anything. That's like calling me a sissy, like Jeff did earlier today on something else, by the way.
Shovel your own snow. But anyways, go ahead.
But I did. I used a snowblower. Somebody stole my snowblower twice in the last 7 years.
So you're trying to MacGyver this tree.
Yeah, I'm MacGyvering the tree, and it tipped over and went straight into my face and my eye, and it scratched my cornea in a couple places, but I've got a significant scratch on the right side on my right eye, and it hurts like the dickens. And this is going to be your favorite part. And they offered me an eye patch.
I was calling for it so bad before the show. I was like, please tell me you're in an eye patch. Please tell me you're in an eye patch. Oh.
And I almost did it, but I'm like, oh gosh, I've got a show tonight, and those guys are relentless. My beloved live chat is relentless, and I would never get over it. And Dave, it would not be rated PG like he said it would be. Rated R.
Hey, can I say something real quick? Because it was from the live chat. Captain Underpants asked a question for me. That was I'll tell you right now, it's the exact question that I answered on today's Stat Geek. So maybe he was asking it now to get credit for it, because I didn't remember who had asked it, so I didn't give them credit. But yeah, it was the worst an 11-0 team has finished. So check that out on the Stat Geek. I just wanted to say it before I had to go. But Bryan,
So if I'm doing my best Mike Tomlin impersonation, I'm starting my press conference with Bryan Anthony Davis suffered a significant cornea injury on. Anyways, we haven't even got.
We're hoping to have him available on Sunday.
Yeah,
We'll really let this week be our guide. Before we do anything of ruling him out.
You know, I don't want to paint his injury with a broad brush here. So we just want bad to be back, because the standard is the standard and bad's the standard.
Here's what I love. Matt says in the live chat, upper body. If it was hockey, it'd be Bryan Anthony Davis suffered an upper body injury. He's day to day. All right, Dave Schofield. Dave Schofield, welcome to the program. How's it going?
I'm doing good. Sorry, I jumped in a couple times already, but wanted to make sure that I could answer that question in the live chat quick. And I'm sorry. I'm really glad that Bryan is well enough that he doesn't have the eye patch, because I would have to click off the screen the whole time. There's no way I could have looked at him this entire show and not just ahoy every 2 seconds. So Bryan, I hope your eye feels better. Did they give you any prognosis of how long? I mean, are you day to day? Have you been ruled out? Or
well, I'm one that I like to play hurt. So that's why I'm doing the show here. I'm on antibiotics for the next 4 to 5 days. If it flares up that they want to see me back, but it looks like I'm going to be I'm not a game day decision, guys. I might be questionable, but you got me.
There you go. So you are more MacGruber than MacGyver.
I would probably say that. Hey, but here's the best part that I didn't even tell you about. This happened immediately when I started it. It was like 5 seconds into the project, and I spent the next 15 minutes doing the project with one eye because I had to get it done. So woo, yay me.
Yeah, Mr. Fix It. All right, let's get right into the Steelers news. There has been some news this week. I want to get your guys' take on a couple things before we, really talk about the upcoming matchup. And the first thing is a lack of talking about the upcoming matchup. I have to say this, okay? I have been listening to Mike Tomlin press conferences since 2007, okay? And this goes back to Bill Cowher's. I've always listened to the coach's press conference. My dad and I used to sit down together after dinner, because in the Pittsburgh viewing area, you would get the Bill Cowher press conference re-aired in the afternoon, and we would always watch it later. So I've always listened to coaches' press conferences. Mike Tomlin, for the first time that I can ever remember, didn't talk about the upcoming opponent once. He said, we have a primetime matchup. We just laid an egg on primetime. AFC North divisional rivalry game. The kitchen's hot or whatever he's saying now. I don't know. But still, he didn't talk about Tyler Boyd. He didn't talk about Gio Bernard. He didn't talk about not having to go against Geno Atkins because he's on injured reserve. He didn't say a thing. Guys, I'm not saying this is concerning. It's just felt noteworthy to me to bring it up. I mean, Dave, you know what I'm talking about. He always makes the opponent seem like the 85 Bears, and he didn't even talk about them.
No,
I'm there with my notepad because I take notes during his press conference for my podcast. And I'm like, did I miss him say something? Was I daydreaming? Nope. He didn't say anything, Dave.
No, and that's exactly that's why the Scobro show, we titled it what we did. And that was, this is all about the Steelers. I mean, even Mike Tomlin is not even acknowledging what's really going on with the team that they're playing. So this really is all about the Steelers in this game coming up. And
can someone tell me, Brian, you might be able to do this. Who's the Bengals quarterback? I don't know. I literally don't know.
I think I know.
Who?
Let me guess first because I don't know. I was going to say Ryan Finley, but I don't know.
That's who I thought it might have been, and then no, it's not. It's going to be someone else. And I had to get our wonderful viewers in the live chat had to tell me on Scobro show, because I'm like, I don't know, that apparently, and we saw this on the injury report today, that Brandon Allen is not expected to play, so it would go back to Ryan Finley.
Oh, so Finley might be in. Yeah. That's interesting. So, Brian, do you have anything to say about Tomlin just completely glossing over the fact that they're playing a game against an opponent this week, or what?
Yeah. My first knee-jerk reaction to that was he doesn't know who any of these guys are because we don't.
He didn't want to pull Keith Butler and say, well, I'm really worried about Tyler Eifert.
That could have been it. It could have been it. Oh, my goodness. Okay. I wanted to bring that up. Next topic I wanted to bring up. So let me just go off on a little bit. I talked about this on my Wednesday Let's Ride. Can we please, now this is just me, you all have your own opinion, and those in the live chat that are watching live, whether it's Facebook or YouTube, you have your own opinion as well. It's your prerogative. But can we please shut up about Juju Smith-Schuster dancing? I could care less if he was out there before the kickers were even, the kickers were out there, and he's doing a little TikTok dance. I don't care what these guys do. Give me a break. Did that rub anyone the wrong way? Because I know, first off, let me say this. I know for a fact that he's been doing it for weeks. He did it in Dallas. That was something I saw, I think, on Instagram. I didn't care then. Don't care now. Brian, do you care?
A little, actually. If I'm being completely honest, I just think it's a. Yeah. You kids, get off my lawn.
That would be so much better if you had an eye patch on.
I have one downstairs. But it's
just go ahead. Just get him distracted. I'm sorry.
But I just don't think it's the best look. But here's the thing. Buffalo didn't care about that. They come out with the video, hey, let them do the dance and let them do the talking. Of course you say that. They weren't going to play better because, they didn't play better because Juju danced on a logo. It does not matter whatsoever to the Buffalo Bills. It's just a soundbite and something they could use to throw it out there because guess what? Number 17, Josh Allen, knows he's on camera. And it's a great soundbite. But they don't care about that. Here's the thing. I just don't love it. It's just not my thing. But Juju, the problem is everybody's going to bring this up because they want noise surrounding the whole thing. They're not focused. They're not ready. The one thing that I noticed had nothing to do with that. I watched at the very beginning of that broadcast, I watched Pittsburgh walking out of the locker room, and I watched Buffalo walking out of the locker room because NBC showed them both coming out. Buffalo looked fired up and ready. There's no home crowd. I know they're at home. They looked ready. Steelers moseyed out, just like, all right, let's go to work. And that's what I felt like. I really felt like they were ho-hum coming out. So it might be a lack of focus, but that has nothing to do with it.
Dave, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of like Bryan. Maybe a little bit, but it's not a big deal. He's dancing on the logo. I think he's doing it to show where he is, not like he's trying to disrespect it. And then you guys might have to answer this question to me. Does he do the same thing at Heinz Field before the games? Well, in the Steelers logo.
I'm sure he does.
I'm pretty sure he does. So I don't think it's about, why would they say he's disrespecting our logo? Well, he's doing the same thing to his own logo. It's just a whole little thing that he does, part of his self-promotion. This is where I am. This is that way you know which stadium he's at and what's going on as part of the things he does. Part of me says it's not anywhere close to as big a deal as what anyone's making it. But at the same time, if it starts to become a big deal for him to say, well, I'm just going to keep doing it. If it's going to be too much of a big deal and Coach Tomlin says, nope, then guess what? Then he needs to stop. So I know some people gave all the Pittsburgh media, they're the ones that are bringing this up. Then some of them fired back. They're like, we've seen him do this for a long time now. We never asked her to say anything about it. It wasn't until the Bills players brought it up that it's ever been an issue.
I actually didn't mind that Juju even doubled down on it. I actually give him a ton of credit because when Juju said, hey, yeah, I do it. Yes, I realize I'm doing it and I'm going to keep on doing it. He basically told the media, you can take your writing and take your narratives and do whatever you want with it because I'm not going to stop. It wasn't here's a name for you. It wasn't Devin Bush going out in Michigan to go on the Michigan State logo and just raking his cleats through it like in a disrespectful fashion. It wasn't that at all.
Was it Baker Mayfield?
Baker Mayfield.
Flag on
right. So it wasn't that. It was just him. He's just lighten up, people. Seriously, gosh, lighten up. Everyone
here's the other thing. Wasn't Juju heading to the Star in Dallas to recreate the TO thing and somebody stopped him?
Yes. I don't care about that either. I don't.
You know what? We didn't care about that then. We care about it more because they've lost 2 straight games, and everybody's going to say they've got to be focused. They can't be doing this. Look, what Juju does in those 60 minutes of actual game time is pretty remarkable, and nobody plays harder than he does. So I'm not concerned. I don't love it, but I'm not concerned.
Well, and everyone brings up, oh, well, do you guys care when someone does something that's terrible to? Well, yes, we care, but we only care and we only remember times when it comes back to bite a team. Anyone want to talk about when Ray Rice walked off the field in Heinz Field with it over his head, and then they ended up, I think that was the year they knocked the Steelers out of the playoffs in 2014. No one brings that up, and everyone talked about he's desecrating the towel. Look, this stuff is all noise. And that's why when Mike Tomlin was asked about it on Tuesday, he was like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Liar.
Maybe he doesn't, because honestly,
he did a good job of not answering a few questions.
Yes, he did.
He all of a sudden forgot that he ever said that Ben Roethlisberger's spiral wasn't as tight as he'd like to see it.
It was only one of the biggest storylines of training camp, Dave. Come on.
And then he's like, I don't remember saying that.
All right, let me get to this super chat here real quick. Steel Dog 88 says the Steelers need to get Samuels. He's talking about I guess, Jalen Samuels,
Yeah.
and Washington more involved. We're going to talk about those two individuals because they could have some increased roles this week for sure. All right, let's get to real quick some other news. Matt Filer was put on injured reserve this week. That was not a shock. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN did say that he believes, just like he did with Robert Spillane, that there's a chance they could come back. Both of those players are not done for the year, that they could be back. That's good news. But let's also remember that Vince Williams could potentially be coming off the COVID list. Dave, prime your article that's probably going to run on Friday about that and what he thinks about that. But guys, let's go. Dave, let's just go into the injury report now. Do you have that up?
I have the injury report right here.
Let's do it.
Both in front of me and in my brain. You went the Steelers side, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we got the IR stuff. Filer went on IR, so that's not an issue. There were 4 players that did not practice today. So we'll probably have some decent conversations, maybe about all 4, except for maybe this first one. Sean Davis did not practice with an illness, which it's interesting because you don't ever want to see that illness designation with COVID-19 and everything. But you also have to remember sometimes if there's anything that could be related in that way, they just have them stay away if there's any kind of symptoms. So it could be one extreme or the other. Then you've got James Conner did not practice with his quadricep injury that Coach Tomlin mentioned on Tuesday. Kevin Dotson with his shoulder. I kind of called that. Did I say it in the post game that I said, I wonder if Tomlin misspoke and both of them weren't pecs. One might have, because they were both reported shoulders. I said, I'd be surprised they'd both be a pec. But right now they say Dotson is the shoulder. Thank you, Bryan. And then who did practice, before I get to the last person who didn't practice, Joe Hayden was a full participant. There was pictures of him practicing yesterday when the Steelers didn't have to do an injury report. So that's good. They haven't said that he's officially out of the protocol, but that's part of moving through the protocol is practicing. So that's a great sign for him. And then last but not least, one Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger, even on a Thursday, did not participate in practice, which was not injury related. So I was kind of wondering what you guys thought about that.
What's that, Ben?
That Ben still, it was, it's still a regular week, but now Wednesday's on Thursday, and you're like, well, maybe they get that extra day of work in. And apparently he wasn't going to practice. They didn't have him practice today either. Rather than get the extra day of work, they chose to get the extra day of rest.
Let's just say this. I would have been more shocked if he practiced than him not practicing.
See, I just assumed he didn't practice yesterday.
He might have thrown the ball around. I think he still throws the ball around on days like today. He just doesn't officially practice.
Is he running the huddle and out there calling the plays and doing all the other stuff? Yeah.
According to him, a couple weeks ago, they asked him, this was when he had missed a whole week, because this was all the way back before the last Bengals game. They said, what's the difference? And he said, well, normally if I'm not practicing, I'm standing behind the quarterback. I'm right next to Randy. We're talking about what we're seeing. So he's there and he's a part of it. He's just not taking physical repetitions.
Yeah.
But still, I think the injury to watch here is Dotson.
Yes.
It has to be Dotson because, the extra day is going to help. But my goodness, they need to get him back, because if not, Bryan, do they go to J.C. Hassenauer again, or is Derwin Gray still on the practice squad, or is he?
Derwin Gray's Derwin Gray. Derwin Gray is on the active roster. He was just inactive last week. Gotcha. I wanted to answer that because I do the inactives. So.
Okay, Bryan, what do you think?
Absolutely what Dave said, but what I think about when this whole scenario comes up is Kevin Dotson has become one of the most popular Pittsburgh Steelers in the course of a season. For a 4th-round draft pick, for a lineman, I have never seen a 4th-round lineman have this much fanfare, and it's because of everything that's going on with this team. The fact that he's a road grader, that people know that he could, the running game does well when he's in there. They love that. The fans love this guy already. I think he's a huge fan favorite, but he's very important to that team. And he is growing each and every week. So I got to tell you, I'm really hoping he's back. When you say that he is the guy to look at, absolutely.
A couple of names that Mike Tomlin brought up on Tuesday that weren't even listed. and someone brought up Chukes Okorafor. He was not even listed on the injury report, nor was Terrell Edmonds with a shoulder.
That one surprised me about Edmonds.
Yeah. That's good news. That's great.
Yeah, it is.
That's great. You don't want to see
said, look for
players
these guys to possibly miss time earlier in the week. Not only did he not miss out, wasn't even listed. It could have even have been listed, but full participant. That's good news.
Sasquatch gives us 5 Canuck bucks. He says, if we get ahead in this game, would you be okay seeing Dobbs and doing some trick or gadget plays like Taysom Hill to throw in some spice in the offense? Guys, what are your thoughts? Dave, we'll start with you.
I write not only just the projected inactives, but the inactives article every week. And it's 13 for 13. Joshua Dobbs has not been in a helmet on game day all season. So you can't just bring a guy in to do some trick plays if they get ahead when it's a guy that's not going to dress for the game.
I agree. Bryan?
I would love some trickery. I would love some spice. This is bland, what we're looking at right now. Remember, every week we were talking about the jet sweep? That's even disappeared. This is just a very 1920s offense right now.
Bring back Dick Shiner. All right.
And Buzz Nutter.
Dick Shiner hands off to Buzz Nutter. Okay, so anyway.
Holy cow.
Yowza. All right. I'm gonna rely on you. We are very silly tonight.
The Steelers preview is brought to you by Ovaltine.
Don't forget to drink your Ovaltine. A crummy commercial? Son of a... All right, I'm going to rely on you two here for this next segment. I'd like we did this last week. I wanted to continue it this week, and that was talking a little bit about the playoff picture and the AFC side of things. And I know Dave does the 3 games to keep an eye on, and then Bryan, you do the rooting guide and who Steeler fans should be pulling for. So real quick, Dave, what were your 3 games to keep an eye on in case those out there have not seen the article? What are your 3 games and why were they important for the Steelers?
There was one I almost wanted to do, and that was the Bills game, and now I can't even remember who they play. It's on Sunday, the Broncos.
Broncos, Saturday.
Yeah, it's on Saturday. That was my honorable mention. It almost made it in there just because they are only 1 spot behind the Steelers, but I didn't. Instead, I went with the Colts game because that's who the Steelers play the following week, and that's the Colts playing. My goodness, why can I not remember the schedule right now?
I'll look it up.
We need Big Ben's son because apparently he remembers the entire schedule each week, as he said.
The Colts host the Texans.
The Texans, that's who it was. Again, because the Texans should have beat them last time, and they fumbled it away inside the 5. So that's a good one to know, not just because of how the Colts are playing coming in to meet the Steelers. The Colts are one of the teams that the Steelers are looking to make sure they have an advantage over in the final rankings, as long as the Steelers win the AFC North, and which comes with either 1 win by them, regardless of which game it is, 1 loss by the Browns, regardless of which game. If that happens, they win the North. So if 6 games have to go perfectly for them to not win the North, and they're going to be, shuffling for position, and one of those teams is going to be from the AFC South. You just don't know if it's going to be the Colts or the Titans. And the Steelers already have the tiebreaker of the Titans. So that one's a good one to pay attention to. Of course, then I have the Browns and the Giants on Sunday night because, once again, the Steelers still play the Browns. And if the Browns lose, then the North is won. So that'll be interesting. And then today we get the news of that it looks like it's former Brown Colt McCoy quarterbacking with the plays being called by former head coach
Freddie Kitchens.
The
Kitchens returns.
Yeah. So there's that one. And then the other game that I went with is I'm like, we still want to pay a little bit of attention to the Kansas City Chiefs. Mm-hmm. Even if Pittsburgh wins this weekend and the Chiefs lose, it still doesn't catapult the Steelers back into the 1 because when I first did the playoff scenarios, I knew that the Chiefs played the Chargers the last game of the season, and I knew that they played the New Orleans Saints this coming week, but I didn't pay much attention to who they played in between. It's another NFC opponent. So in order for the Steelers to catch the Chiefs either have to specifically lose 1 game to the Chargers or they've got to lose 2 while the Steelers win out in order for the 1 seed. So
it ain't gonna happen.
It's not even much about the 1 seed. Is kind of want to have an idea of what the Chiefs are doing, because that is, if the Steelers want to stay ahead of the Bills, have that 2 seed, and then that way they're not matched up against Kansas City until you're talking about an AFC Championship game. But you want to have an idea how the team that's doing that has the better record, how they're doing rolling.
It's a measuring stick. It's a measuring stick. Now, Bryan, I have a feeling that you're going to echo a lot of the things that Dave just said. So my question for you.
Actually, no.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to disagree, but I'm going to ask both of you this question. I'm saying it out loud so I don't forget it. How important is the number 2 seed? Assuming that the Steelers are not going to catch the Chiefs. How important is the number 2 seed for you in the playoffs? But go ahead, Bryan, disagree with Dave, and then we'll go back to that.
Well, not completely. I'm not completely disagreeing with Dave. Those are good games to watch. But the rooting guide is set up a little different. The rooting guide is to look way ahead. And, because we know what the Steelers need to do to make the playoffs. They're in the playoffs. We know what they have to do to win the North. They basically have to win 1 more game to win the North. So really what I'm looking at is what's going to happen in the playoffs. I'm looking at the Indianapolis Colts in the rooting guide as a team you actually want to root for this weekend. And the reason I put that in there, and you can go ahead and listen to it and hear a little bit more, but I feel like the Colts right now, they are a team that I don't feel like is going to do as well in the playoffs. I'd rather them be a division winner and take on a wild card team. I would rather the Tennessee Titans go ahead and not win that division, come in as a wild card team, maybe be matched up against a team like Kansas City down the road or Buffalo, something like that, because I think they could be way more dangerous. The team that I was really high on last week on the rooting guide, because you needed it to happen if you wanted Cleveland out of there, was Baltimore. Now they're the number 8 seed. They're a team that you've got to look at right now as a team that could possibly get very dangerous in the playoffs. They're also a team that, you'd love to keep out of there just for Yinzer's sake. You would just love the Ravens to be out of there. So if the Dolphins keep on winning, the Colts move up to a division winner, then the Tennessee Titans, who have a tiebreaker over Baltimore, will be ahead of them. They could keep Baltimore on the outside looking in if that all happens. So that's why I'm looking at the Colts to keep on winning. That's the only disagreement I have with Dave. It's definitely a game to watch, but it could actually benefit the Steelers in the long run to have the Colts win.
I don't remember saying about having the Colts lose. I just said it's an interesting game to pay attention to.
Yeah, that's true. Dave
Okay,
is pretty game to watch.
All right, yeah. So I thought the reason you brought it up because didn't know why else we would
I hadn't
watch
thought about it that deep. I just knew it was important.
But yeah, that's what I do with the rooting guide. But the Dolphins, we want to keep them winning too. But the thing about the Colts too is you would want them to win this week because you want them to lose next week when they're taking on Pittsburgh
Steelers. Yeah,
and the Dolphins play the New England Patriots this week, just so we're clear. Now,
interesting game.
Yeah,
and now you just want to see the Dolphins win that anyway, just because you want to see the Patriots lose. I still want to see the Patriots.
I love to watch them lose, but still, guys, let's go back to Dave real quick. Okay. How important to you is the number 2 seed?
I like it because home teams basically get an extra day because you don't have to travel, and obviously the number 2 seed's going to host a wild card game. If you win that game, as long as you keep winning, you're going to keep hosting a game until you get to the AFC Championship game. So usually, under the normal 6 teams, those teams play on wild card weekend, and then they all go on the road the next week. That's just how it works because the 1 seed, the 2 seeds have it. So now, coming in as the 2 seed, as long as you win, you get 2 straight home games. So I would rather have the 2 seed for that reason, but how, like I say, there's no fans, so it's not like that's going to help as much, but it's just still kind of the whole notion of it. I like, but is it more important than having the right matchup? To me, you're going to have to play well in the playoffs in order to win. So it almost doesn't matter exactly who your matchup is.
Bryan, do you agree?
Absolutely, but I feel that the Steelers really need to win out. And if you listen to Let's Ride tomorrow morning, you'll see how important a streak is. So make sure you check that out on all of your favorite streaming networks. But with that being said, look, I have seen this so many times. I have seen the Indianapolis Colts knock off the number 1 seeded Kansas City Chiefs in 1995 to get the Pittsburgh Steelers, the number 1 seed, to end up going to the Super Bowl that year. We have seen a lot of times when the Steelers have gone in as the number 2 seed and have ended up in the AFC Championship game with a home game. That it's a good thing to be the number 2 seed as well. There's not a lot of situations where it's always 1 versus 2. You really want to get that over the 3rd seed, but everything Dave said about the fact when you reach the national championship game, when you reach the AFC championship, if you're inclined to do so, you really want to be in that position to have the best shot at the home game. So I agree with everything he's saying. I think it's important.
I do want to say, and I want to give you plugged my show for tomorrow, Friday morning. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. I want to plug Tony Deffia's article that's going to run on the website Friday morning. And it's about essentially the Steelers have made the postseason for the first time since 2017, and no one's talking about it. I get that when you start 11-0, you have a much bigger fish to fry, so to speak. But at the same time, I mean, think back to the last 2 years where right now, if we were to, get in the black and gold DeLorean and go back, we'd be like, are they going to make the playoffs? What needs to happen for them to make the playoffs? Who needs to lose? What do the Steelers need to do? What chips need to fall in a certain way? They're already locked it up. They're essentially locking up the AFC North, hopefully this weekend. And my goodness, now we're just talking about seeding. It's a good problem to have. All we need now is the Steelers to start playing a little bit better, and we'll all feel a heck of a lot better going into the postseason. So if you're on audio right now, you're going to head over to part 2 where we're going to talk about X factors, bold predictions, give you our predictions for the game. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, we're not going anywhere. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back. Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, joined with Brian Anthony Davis, our podcast producer, and Dave Schofield, the other co-editor. And we are talking all things Steelers. And I normally say Steelers versus the Bengals, but if Mike Tomlin doesn't talk about the Bengals, should we be talking about the Bengals? Yes, we'll talk about the Bengals. But I want to first give Brian the opportunity. Brian's the one that thought of today's title of this episode. Brian, I'd like to give you a chance to explain it, and we'll talk about it to start off the second part. Go ahead.
All right. So this is being called a get-right game. So the titles is a get-right game against Cincinnati needs to be handled with care. Look, you can't be the Steelers of the past where you're looking at a 2-10-1 team and saying, hey, we're the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a cakewalk. You are not. You have lost that right the last 2 weeks with the way that you've played. Now, it's great to have pride that you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, but you don't go in assuming that if you just take care of business, you're going to win this game. You go in saying, we are taking care of business and no mercy. This is Cobra Kai. This is John Kreese right now. Finish them. No mercy. This you talked about, I believe, on your show the other day. I'm going to plug another show. Go and check out. It's a style. You mentioned style points. It's definitely about style points this week. They have to go in and make a statement in this game. A 23-20 win is not good enough, but they can't go in being ho-hum. There has got to be so much urgency, but you can't be reckless.
Dave, what are your thoughts on that? I know you talked about it on the Scobro show, but give you an opportunity.
Yeah, Brian brought up something. I was trying to look this up, and hold on, because he talks about taking on a 2-10-1 team, and I'm like, the thing that's different that I find with this is, do the Steelers usually lay an egg against a team with such a bad record where they lose the game when it's within the division? That's not usually what happens, if you know what I mean. So it's one of these. Remind me what it is again, the exact question, because I was so busy looking up that stat about that. Now I'm trying to.
It's about the
Okay.
loss record with Seattle, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say that's okay. Seattle has 2 losses, but I mean, no. Brian brought up such a good point. I wanted to find that out. You know what I'm saying? So
I'll take it from here, Dave.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will say that the style points do matter. That the Pittsburgh Steelers, I talked about this on my Let's Ride Wednesday episode. Check it out if you haven't yet. This is not a game like Brian mentioned it. You can't just kind of coast your way to win. If not just for the Steelers fan base either. I mean, the fans want a dominating win, but you get the feeling when you listen to these players, you see these interviews, they feel the same pressure that the Steelers fans see. And that is, we're not trending in the right way. We need to make sure we have a performance that goes out and we go out there and just lay the hammer down. Like, that's what they need to do. So yeah, this could be a get right game, but it's got to look the right way. And there's people out there. I had some people on Twitter. They're like, Jeff, you just spent the entire first 10 games telling us that style points don't matter. And now you're saying that style points do. And I know I'm the biggest hypocrite of them all right now. However, with that said, I hope you all realize what we're talking about and the importance of how you go about winning this game against a 2-10-1 opponent. All right.
But can I now?
Sure, Dave. Go ahead.
With Brian, because I got it here in front of me. Is I wanted to know the last time the Steelers were like a really big, heavy favorite against an AFC North team that they ended up losing the game. And and it's happened a few times since Coach Tomlin's been there. With the most recently, we should have remembered the infamous 2 days after Christmas in 2015 Ryan Mallett game is when it's happened. But usually the Steelers don't come out and lay that egg against such an inferior opponent record-wise. So yes, I completely agree. It's not. You say whether you call it style points or whatnot, it is not whether or not you win the game. It is also the manner in which you win the game. And I'll go on record saying this one last time. If the Pittsburgh Steelers, if what they need to do is to win the AFC North is to defeat the 2-10-1 Cincinnati Bengals, if they can't do that, then they're not the best team in the North anyway.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's talk a little bit about this matchup and the Pittsburgh Steelers that we're expecting to have big performances in some way or shape or form. Now, the X Factor segment is something that I have to now explain to Brian every week, and that is when we pick a Pittsburgh Steeler that plays either offense or defense for your X Factor for that week. He tried to say BJ Finney on his defensive side. He was thinking out of the box, but he went out into a different area code. So we're trying to keep it here. Keep it in the 301. All right. So Brian Anthony Davis, who is your offensive X factor for the Steelers in week 15?
I love it. I've never lived anything down. Oh boy, why do you even hire me? Look, as far as an X factor for this game, I mean, it's really easy to say that it's Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger, but it is. He really has to lead this team this week. I thought last week was his worst game of the season. It was a lackluster performance. I know there were a lot of things going on in that game. There were drops, but really it's all about leading and it's all about his play calling too. And there are some things that need to change. And as far as the players go, they're going to follow Ben. So Ben is your X factor.
Can't disagree with that. Dave, what about you? Offensive X factor.
Yeah, I really wanted to tell a quick story about something that you mentioned before. You know how you said which one? Brian said that that seemed like they were flat and just kind of not fired up like the Bills were. Yes. I kind of had an experience like that. It was in high school. It wasn't even my senior year. We were playing our arch rival school, and our coaches thought, let's change things up and do something different. We're going to do our warm-ups on our own field and get on the bus and drive straight there and walk onto the sidelines and play the game. And they told us to do that. And they also said, we don't want you yelling and screaming and getting fired up. We're just going to walk out straight off the bus to the sidelines like we're there for business. It was a disaster. It was. They were all fired up. We were not. So when Brian said that, one of the things that sparked in my mind is this team, you don't normally travel the day before a game. Do you think traveling the day of the game just kind of had them kind of off kilter? They were just not in their regular thing. I don't know if they did or not, but that's something to remember. And Bryan saying that about Roethlisberger having his worst game of the season just kind of got me thinking that they had been off for a while, but I don't think they did a lot of things that helped them to get back on track. Now, for my X factor, whoever plays left guard.
Okay.
I don't know who it's going to be, but whoever it is has got to get the job done.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm going to go with the guy that I've been so down on the last 2 weeks. It's been so frustrating. It's Deontay Johnson. Yeah. What you're seeing is how important he is to the offense. And I can't take credit for this. It was someone on Twitter. They said that Ben wants and almost needs a player that he says, that's my number one. That's the guy I'm going to throw to when I really need a big play. He had it with Antonio Brown. Juju is up there, but Juju doesn't have that type of separation ability that Deontay Johnson does. He wants Deontay Johnson to be that guy. Deontay Johnson has to do his job. Holy cow, catch the football. Plain and simple. That's why he's my X factor. Because when he's on, the whole offense is clicking. You go back and watch the film, you'll see it. When he's playing well, the whole offense is playing well as well. Let's go to defense now, Bryan. Who's your defensive X factor?
I think it's TJ. TJ Watt is the guy that he's not the captain of that defense, but he is becoming the heart of that defense. You know, I could say a number of guys because there's so many important spots here on defense, but I really think the TJ can disrupt a young quarterback more than anybody. And I would love to see him. I'm not saying he's going to have multiple sacks, but he needs to set the tone with disruption. Last week, they did not really disrupt Josh Allen that much. They had one sack, but there was not much of a disruption. If he can go ahead and cause some chaos there, they could dominate this game just by befuddling them.
All right. So is it Trent James? Is that TJ?
Trent Jordan.
Trent Jordan. Dang it. I'm going to remember that. All right, Dave, go ahead. What's your defensive X factor?
Okay, I'm going to kind of go with the same kind of explanation that you had for offense. And that is, Deontay Johnson, he's had the drops. He needs to come back and do his thing. He needs to show back up for this defense who was completely shut out last week is Stephon Tuitt. Now, granted, he's coming back from the COVID list, and you have to take that into account a little bit. They don't always say how much things affected them. If they were asymptomatic or symptomatic or whatnot, but depending on the situation, it can wear you down. So I don't know if that was the factor or if it was missing Bud or what it was, but Stephon Tuitt needs to come back and be the dominating force that he has been in the past, who, was third. He's third on the team in sacks, and he didn't have a tackle last week. So he needs to step up. This is a good get right game for him.
I literally want to just say any defender that is looking at a good probability of being able to catch a pass that's thrown their way. Joe Hayden, Minka Fitzpatrick, Terrell Edmonds, Steven Nelson, because I feel like this is a game because I don't even know who their quarterback is. We don't know who it is because, they're both awful, but they'd also have one that's banged up. I look at it and say that I think that this could be a game where you see a lot of takeaways. You could see a lot of takeaways. I think if they can just take advantage of opportunities, be a good confidence booster for this team moving forward. So, all right, you all ready for some over-under?
Yes.
Sure. All right, let's do it. Let's start off with Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger. His touchdown passes, the over-under set at 2.5. What do you say? Let's go with Bryan first.
3.
All right, over. Dave, what about you?
I'm going to say 2. I'll go under.
I'm going to say over 3, mainly because the Steelers' red zone percentage is actually significantly better on the road than it is at home. So I actually like him to chuck the ball in the red zone. Let's go. We're going to change it up. Chase Claypool's kind of gone into the locker room. Juju Smith-Schuster touchdowns, 1.5. Over, under, Bryan.
Let's go over. I think he has a great week, too.
Okay. What about you, Dave?
I'm going under with 1.
I agree with Dave. I'm going to say under with 1. Defensive sacks on whoever they put under center, and they being the Bengals. I'm going to set it at 3.5. That might seem low, but you all know that
that's how many the Bengals give up on average.
3.5.
Yes.
I did not know that. So Bryan, go ahead.
I'm going to go over 17. No, I'm looking at 4.
Okay. Dave?
Over. And this might tip me off for later.
Okay.
I'm going 7.
Wow. I'm going to look, I've been burnt on this over under more than anything else. It'll be under. I'm going to say 3. Right when you think they're going to tee off on someone and you think this is the game that they're just going to be all over them, it just never seems to come to fruition.
It's a familiar opponent is why I'm going.
That's true. Okay. I hope you're right. All right. Sacks surrendered. The line is set at 0.5. So, Bryan, what do you think?
Under. It's coming back.
Clean. Dave, what about you?
Yeah, I'm saying under as well. I was going to look up the exact number. They have only sacked the quarterback 15 times this season, so I'm going to say under.
I'm actually going to go over with 1. I think that someone gets a hold of Ben or trips him up. I don't know.
Or do you think he holds the ball longer to wait for things to develop?
Right. Is Lawson still playing for them? I mean, he's a pass rusher. He's got a good ability, so we'll see. All right, turnovers. That's the Steelers giving the ball up. It's an unfortunate trend that's been going on in the past few weeks. Turnovers set at 1.5. Bryan, over under?
Under 1.
All right, Dave?
Cincinnati is not a big takeaway team. They only have 12 on the season in 12 games. So what was the line again?
1.5.
I'm going to say under at 1 because that's kind of
right
with the
average. I'm going to say under at 0. They get back on track. They keep it clean. Takeaways, defensive takeaways, 2.5. Bryan, over under?
Over.
Nice. Dave?
I'm going to go over as well. I'm going to go 3.
Okay. I'm going to go under with 2. Here we go. Steelers rushing yards. Let's get after it. What, they have 45 last week or something like that? That was a huge improvement, by the way.
47.
Oh, I'm sorry. 47.
Yeah.
They're trending.
That's a much different percentage.
Mike Tomlin would say the arrow is pointing up with this group. So rushing yards, this may be made. I'm rolling pretty good with these lines, in my opinion. I'm saying 80. Okay, team, not one individual. Team. Bryan, over under?
Let's rewind the tape a little bit. Let's go back to sacks 17. Under.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's fine.
17 yards rushing. No, I mean,
you're fine. It's one of those things where you're like, holy cow, is it seriously going to be that bad for that long? Dave, what do you think?
Cincinnati is on average gives up, what is it?
I don't know.
132 yards a game. I think the Steelers can, I don't know that they'll get 100, but I think they can. You said 80 or 85?
80.
Then I'm going to go over. I'm going to go with 85.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to go under because, again, it's just like with the sacks, right? When you think they're going to play a team that they're going to be able to just run it down their throat, they never do it. And not to mention the issues on the offense.
On how the game plays out, really.
But it also is going to depend on the left guard that you mentioned in your X Factor.
Yeah. But I mean, if the Steelers get a lead, then they're going to probably try to commit to trying to right the ship with the run game.
They're going to commit to it. I just don't know if they're going to be successful doing it.
Do you have the next one? The next one's the key. Rushing attempts.
Oh, I did not do that. Okay. How many did they have last week? They had like 15, I think, didn't they, last week? So we'll say rushing attempts.
20.
Yeah, I was going to say 18, but that's fine.
Okay.
So, let's say it's 18. Bryan, do you think they rush for more than 18 times or less?
Actually, I think they try to rush for more. They're trying to force it.
Okay. Dave, you say over under?
I say over. I think they'll run it at least 25 times. I think the game will dictate that will give them the opportunity to try to run it more, because you don't want to just run the ball for no gain all the time when you're needing to score points. But if they have a lead, then you can try to maybe do some different things to commit to the run.
On Thursday, Randy Fichtner said in his press and his media availability that he deems a 4-yard or more run as a quality run. I said, well, the Steelers haven't had many of those recently.
No.
All right, the last one here, and I've never done this one before, so I'm just trying to think outside the box. I'm trying to pull a Bryan Anthony Davis. Defensive yards allowed, total, rushing and passing, 215. Over under.
Again, total yards?
The defense, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense giving up the Bengals offensive yards. So this is in passing and rushing combined. Bryan, do you think it's over 215 or under?
Wow, I actually think it's going to be. I think they're going to handle them, but I'm going to say over because I'm looking at a garbage, just like the last time, a garbage time, a fake punt, something that gives them yards when this game is completely out of control. So I'm going to say over, but I don't think it matters.
Dave?
Bryan hit the nail on the head there. It's kind of how the game plays out. If it's a very low scoring close game because the Steelers offense can't do anything, then I would expect that total to be under. But if the Steelers have a decent lead, they're not going to be worried about giving up yards just by sucking up time on the clock. So I'm going to go over, but I could make an argument for under as well.
Okay, I'm going to go over. I think it might be around 250. And I was close to setting it at 250, but I was like, now let's be aggressive. Let's do 215. All right, let's go to prediction time. The line, what is it now, Dave? Do you have
13.
that? So it was 12.5 when I set my pick for the Steelers game. And is the over-under set at, is that still the same? What was that on yours?
40.5.
40.5. Okay. Bryan, how do you see this game going down on Monday night?
So I'm looking at the Steelers getting right and winning this game, but I don't know how right they're going to make it. They're going to win. They're going to go ahead and cover the spread. Let's go ahead and say 28-10.
Okay. Dave's upset. That was
he's going to come through with almost my same answer, which is exactly right. I see the Steelers righting the ship a little bit. I don't see them. What was it? 36-10 last time when they played. I don't know that their offense is going to have it together that much, but it might even be that they don't have to this game, but we'll see. I'm going 27-10.
This is a get right game in every sense of the word. I like the Steelers to not only win, I like them to cover the 12.5 or the 13. And I like the over. I like the Steelers to win this game 34-13. I think the offense kind of gets back on track. They get a little mojo going. I do think they run the ball well, and especially situationally. Third and shorts, goal line situation, I think they really commit to running the ball. So there you have it. So we all like the Steelers to win this game and to clinch the AFC North, even though that could be done on Sunday. All right, Dave. Yeah, you said you had a good trivia question.
Yeah, it kind of rolls along into this a little bit. But first of all, I want to say the over-under, we all know that's going to be a lot more to do with the Steelers than anything else.
Yeah.
And here's part of the reason why. All right, here's a little trivia question. Pittsburgh Steelers versus Cincinnati Bengals. Let's go with the Mike Tomlin era since 2007. Playoffs, home, away, doesn't matter. What's the most points the Cincinnati Bengals have scored on the Pittsburgh Steelers in the Mike Tomlin era? In one game, of course. Stop cheating, Jeff. Jeff's cheating. Put it away, Jeff.
Hold on. I looked this up. For my Let's Ride. I'm going to say.
Well, then if you look it up, you should let Bryan answer first.
Okay, go ahead, Bryan. But I don't know if the number I looked up was right.
Okay.
Go ahead, Bryan.
Let's go with 27.
Well, I know that in 2005, they gave up 38.
Okay.
And it was a 38-31 loss. That was the famous TJ Hushmanzada terrible towel game at Heinz Field.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin coached a great game in that one.
Oh my gosh, it's Bill Cowher. He said Tomlin. Good catch. I don't know. 26?
The answer is 23.
Oh,
wow.
Most points the Cincinnati Bengals have scored on the Pittsburgh Steelers in the Mike Tomlin era is 23. And that was in a victory, and that was in 2009. Believe it or not, the Pittsburgh Steelers have gone 23 games in a row allowing 21 points or less to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Where does that
Bengals
38? Where does that 38 in 2005 rank amongst, since I don't know, Chuck Noll was hired?
Okay, so you want to go back to 92?
Yeah. So
Give me a second, and I can have that for
all right,
you.
that's fine. I mean,
the other thing that's really interesting is that I broke it down to how these 28 games under Mike Tomlin, including the playoffs, where the Steelers are 23-5 in those games. The Bengals average 15.1 points a game. They've scored 10 points or less 8 times, 11 to 17 points 10 times, and 18 to 21 points 9 times. And then they just hit 23 the one time. And the Steelers have gone over 23 or more points 20 of those 28 games. So that's kind of how it rolls. So you want to know points against. If you go all the way back to 92, that 2005 game of 38 points is the most.
Yeah. I was going to say, because I was trying to think, even as I was doing the show, and obviously I bring back the 2005 season. I talk about that a lot in the podcast for Friday morning. I was like, they gave up 38 points. I couldn't think of a time that the Bengals scored more.
Well, they've only scored over 30 points under Cowher and Tomlin 3 times. 38 in 2005, 34 in 96, and 1995 they scored 31 in a loss, where the Steelers beat them 49-31. Wasn't there a game where both teams scored in the 40s? I'm thinking I was listening to it on the radio as a kid. It was like a November game. I'll have to look at that one. I was thinking I was in my dad's truck. We were out where he would go hunting, so it'd be around closer to Thanksgiving, and they scored. I mean, here we go. Well, 1988 was the 42-7, and 89 was the 41-10.
Yeah, and because that's a famous game because of the 51-0 the week before with Cleveland, where they were outscored 92-10. I was going to bring that up next. Yeah. That was and then the Steelers ended up going to the divisional game in the playoffs after that horrendous start.
But the Bengals generally don't score points on the Steelers. I thought that was kind of interesting how, and it's funny because I'd like to go back to all the score predictions in StatGeek, and some people were giving the Bengals a decent. I'm like, do you really think the Bengals are going to score 24 points? People are like, 37-20. I don't know.
Yeah.
Especially this Bengals team. Because I'm sorry, Joe Burrow was what they had last time.
Yeah.
And now they don't. Did we not mention this? Did we not say this in the offseason when we were looking at the schedule? Did we not say, the Steelers, they'll be going to Cincinnati on Monday night in December if Joe Burrow doesn't get killed and is even still the quarterback? We said that.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what we're preparing for right now.
You're right. You are right. All right, folks, next up is bold predictions. This is our last segment of the show other than a special segment. The bold predictions is an article that Bryan Anthony Davis does on game day every single week, and it's where he takes his shot at some crazy predictions. We're not going to talk about Bougie Smith-Schuster on this show.
I love Bougie.
I know you do. But we also take a stab at some other predictions, and sometimes we get them right. Like I predicted one week, I think it was Washington, that James Washington would lead the team in receiving. And sometimes we get them dead wrong. I think, Dave, didn't you predict in Baltimore a defensive touchdown? That was when Spillane had the pick six.
I said one team will score a defensive touchdown, and that will be the difference of the game, and that's exactly what happened.
You're right.
I also like Brian's shutout against Jacksonville, and then they scored in the very opening possession. It was the only time they scored. But
oh yeah,
I was watching that game with Jeff. I heard Jeff said, "Well, there goes Brian's prediction."
I'm closer on the ridiculous ones that would never happen.
All right, well, let's do the realistic ones here, Bryan. What's your bold prediction for Week 15?
Wow, so here we go. We are going to have a reemergence of a player, one that a lot of people have wondered where he's at. He has been alluded to this week. Mike Tomlin talked about him because he was asked about him. They just talked about him on the live chat. It's Chase Claypool, the rookie wall. Well, the rookie wall, just like John Mellencamp said back in 1983, when the wall comes crumbling down. Yeah, well, the wall is coming crumbling down. Chase Claypool has a game. He reemerges. I'm giving him 2 TDs.
Nice. What about you, Dave? What's your bold prediction?
Well, I said 7 sacks was one I was going with, for sure. I would. Part of me really wants to think that it could be a shutout, but I'm not. I'm going to say that, kind of along what Jeff was saying. I'm not going to even say which one. I'm going to say a Steelers defensive back will have 2 interceptions in the game. One player will have 2 interceptions.
I like it. I'm going to go with, I've been thinking about this, and I'm going to go, this is the game. I think Vance McDonald scores a touchdown. He's been super quiet all year. Obviously, he spent some time on the COVID list. I think Vance McDonald gets paid. It's going to be a red zone touchdown. I don't think it's going to be a Chris Conte stiff arm heard around the world like it was on Monday Night Football down in Tampa Bay. But still, I think that Vance McDonald gets on the off the schneid, so to speak.
That was mine last week.
Yeah, well,
I was wrong.
Yeah. All right, I want to finish the show up. Last week, it's crazy to think because it's gone so fast. And I do want to plug that on our audio platform, you have to check out our Christmas memory podcasts. And that's something that all of the podcasters, the 3 of us, as well as the blokes from Down Under, Michael Beck, everyone, even Big Bro Rich is doing one. Every night at 7 p.m., we are going to release these memory. It's only about 10 to 15 minutes, and it's great. They've been great so far. Dave's ran tonight, Thursday night. His brother's is going to go on Friday. Bryan's will be coming up at some point. I think Maddie's is coming up on Saturday. So you got to check those out. But last week we talked about Christmas music. I love Christmas music. This week we want to talk about movies. And I also want to mention we are going to have a show next week on Christmas Eve. It might be a different time, might be a little bit earlier.
Oh, there's no might about it.
Oh, it will be.
It's going to be a different time.
It'll be a different time.
We're not doing this at 9 o'clock on Christmas Eve.
But so we'll talk about traditions next week, but I want to get your guys' thoughts on movies. And I want to do something here. We all know that Die Hard's great. Dave hasn't seen it, so we're not going to talk about Die Hard. So non-Die Hard Christmas movie, non-Lethal Weapon Christmas movie. Gotcha. What are some of your favorites? Ones that you have to watch. You have to watch. Not if I see it's on TV, I'll watch it. Ones that you're like, I have to watch this or else it's just not Christmas. Dave, I'm going to let you go first.
Okay. Well, I knew this question was coming tonight. I just had the feeling. So even though I've probably already seen it a dozen times this Christmas season, last night I had to make sure I was available to twice back to back, even though I own the DVD, to watch on TV what I am sporting here tonight. The infamous Christmas Vacation shirt. I will watch that movie. That's one that I don't let go by. It used to be Elf. This one, not at all. I will watch it at any part with that. But it's not Christmas. It's not Christmas until I have, particularly on Christmas Eve, and I don't wait till Christmas Eve. I'll watch it sooner if I have the chance until I watch It's a Wonderful Life.
Good one. Can't go wrong with that. What about you, Bryan? What's the one movie you cannot miss?
My number one is what Dave just said. It's a Wonderful Life makes me cry every single time. I used to watch it even when I was in college. I would watch it after the Pope's Mass, and I would fall asleep and wake up for the end where Zuzu's pedals and
Merry Christmas, Mr. Potter,
and the bell ringing and them singing Auld Lang Syne. I cry every single time. My wife has turned me on to. Well, actually, back to It's a Wonderful Life. My dad and I watched that for the first time on December 20th, 1985. And the reason I remember that is we were putting together a shelf. I've never seen this movie. It was on in the background. Then we just stopped what we were doing and we watched it. And we would always watch it together. And that is something that will always remind me of my pops. So, Dad, I love you. That's my favorite. My wife turned me on to White Christmas. We watch that every year. Bing Crosby, Danny K, or Danny blanking K.
But, happiest family this side of the nut house.
I tell you what, it's right. It's that movie makes me cry too because of how it was set up to make this old general's life retirement and to help save his inn. it's a wonderful movie. Now, I do love, as far as new movies go, I go back to a movie that I found by accident because I'm Mr. 2 a.m. and I'm flipping through the channels. I go past HBO and I see two naked people. And I'm like, whoa, what's this? And I have
Actually.
It's Love Actually.
Yes,
I had no. It was that.
It had to be the HBO version.
It was that scene where they were stimulating. Double. Yeah, there was body doubles, and I was like, "Whoa!" And I had to turn on, and then all of a sudden, Hugh Grant's singing to the dancing around the Pointer Sisters.
Oh,
like, this is a really good movie.
Busts in when old King
yeah.
There's some great scenes in that movie.
And even the scene, I've got a buddy that my kids call Uncle Jamie, and like at the end where they're where Colin Firth is leaving, and his nieces and nephews are going, "I hate Uncle Jamie." I mean, that's just a funny line. It is a really good movie, but at the end when they're playing the Beach Boys, that song is fantastic, and what they did. They didn't tell anybody. This was right after 9/11, but they went to the airport and they filmed people actually greeting each other. I mean, coming off the plane. And then afterwards they said, "Hey, could we use this for a movie?" So it was genuine. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies now. If you've never seen Love Actually, don't watch it because you're a pervert like me for one scene and it's not a dirty movie, but watch it because it has a lot of heart.
You do know on when they show that movie on TV, they just completely cut that storyline itself out, which is interesting because it was really too cute how shy those two people were around each other when they weren't working. So that was kind of funny.
And when she has one of the best lines of the movie when she says, "All I want for Christmas is you," and it kind of sets it up. Kathy's asking which song was it? It's "God Only Knows" by the Beach Boys.
It's a good song. And Dave, you're right. Pentatonic's version of that is really good.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, you guys said It's a Wonderful Life. It's a tradition that I watch. I watch that with my daughters every year, and we don't watch it all at once because they're like, they have an attention span of a gnat, most of them. So it's literally like we watch 20 minutes here and we watch. It's fine. They've seen the movie enough. But for me personally, it's not Christmas Vacation. I've seen it a million times. It's a movie that honestly, if it weren't for me, myself, I probably would have only seen it a handful of times because my dad and my brother and my mom would say over and over again, "I can't stand this movie." Why? Because on Christmas Eve, they show it for 24 hours straight and on TNT or TBS, and they would hate it. And it's a Christmas story. I love A Christmas Story. I relate with Ralphie in a lot of different ways, wanting that one gift. You just want that one flipping gift. And then you get it and somehow it blows up in your face. But still, I love A Christmas Story. And that's a movie that my kids love that movie too. And so now that I think about this, there's only a week left. We have some movies to watch. We bought most of these on DVD. We need to actually do some movie watching coming up soon, or else we're going to run out of time. So there you go. Go ahead, Brian.
Trivia, Jeff. I'm going to give you a trivia question. What is the name of the bad bully kid in Christmas Story?
Scott Farkas.
Scott Farkas. I love it.
He had yellow eyes. So help me God, yellow eyes. I mean, it was just like today we were out in the snow and I pushed one of my daughters over into the snow and she's laying there and she goes, "I can't get up. I can't get up." Get up, Randy. Get up. I know a lot about that.
One thing from that movie we would quote when I was teaching is what I had one specific class where the one kid would always say every time something I would try to give an assignment or something. He's like, "But the bell rang."
But the bell rang. All right. Okay. So next week, on Christmas Eve, I'm going to be asking these guys about some of the traditions that they actually have. Traditions in.
So we're not rolling through about what movie we don't like and what our other ones were?
We're going a little long. Is there a movie you don't like that you really despise?
There's two.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm not a big fan of the Jim Carrey Grinch. I'm really not. I think it's too long and boring. But the one that they just did last year, the Illumination one,
I need to watch that.
It's actually pretty decent. Okay. But honestly, the one movie that I just completely avoid to make sure I do not watch at Christmas time would be A Christmas Story.
Oh my gosh. So good. So good.
You know who hates it more than I do?
Your wife?
Big Brosco. No, my wife likes the movie. Big Brosco cannot stand that movie.
Well, teach their own. Brian, what about you?
Let's just call Dave Can Opener because he just opened a can of worms. If you really want to go down this road, look, I've got an issue, and you know it's coming with the Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I have an issue with that movie. It's cute. I like everything about it. But when you have a situation at the end of this movie, like towards the end of this movie, where all of a sudden he comes and says, hey, you can't be here. You can't have the kid. They go into the kitchen to say goodbye. And whoa, they don't realize they're coming back. And their kid's gone. He's gone. And they're calling the police. If this was your family, you'd be like, oh my God, my kid's missing. What are they doing? They're strutting around in ZZ Top and at the North Pole.
Oh
Give me all your loving.
God.
They're dancing around. They have no regard whatsoever. He's playing Santa Claus. Saint Nick, the most wonderful figure in all of holiday history, and he's kidnapping his own son. That's horrible. It is a horrible social commentary on our time. Now, Santa Claus 2, decent movie. Santa Claus 3, not bad. But you know what? Santa Claus, the first one, I have a problem. My wife yells at me when I do this. I know Jeff's going to call me cancel culture, but he stole the kid.
It's his kid. It's not like he just
But
randomly
it's
stole a
still
kid.
stealing your
He doesn't
own
go
kid.
in and there's a kid sitting on the couch waiting to see Santa Claus and he kidnaps the kid.
He
That's not what
violated a
happened.
court order, Jeff.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Hmm.
And these people are worried sick. I mean, and you think Oscar Mayer wiener whistle is going to save the day? Oh, like you just kidnapped my wife's kid, but I've got a wiener whistle. Woo! Mystery date. Yay!
I'm sorry I brought it up, Jeff.
I told you.
This is ridiculous. I mean, you are absurd right now. Just saying that.
No,
You're like the people that go off on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer because they do nothing but use him when they need him. They cast him off to the side, and then when they can use him, like, oh, you're our best friend. Let's go be friends again.
No, I'm not. I just take exception of that. They could have done
You're
it
okay
without
with
stealing
bullying.
the kid.
You're okay with bullying, but you're not okay with kidnapping. That's where we are.
What are you talking about, bullying? You talking about Christmas story? No, he
know,
overcame the bullying.
Rudolph,
man, the way they bully Rudolph. I mean, even Santa got in on that one. It was like, my goodness. Oh, or here's one I thought of this evening while we were watching this during dinner. Santa Claus is coming to town. He's, we're just telling the story of Santa. And it was the whole if you sit on my lap today, a kiss a toy is the price you'll pay. I'm like, boy, this would be the whole. This is just. You can't say that now. Woo.
Hey, Bad Santa is more appropriate than the Santa Claus.
All right, that's too
all
much.
right. We gotta go.
All right, that's a good show. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back next week. It'll be an earlier time. Follow us on Twitter at BT Steel Curtain is the Behind the Steel Curtain Twitter feed. We will tweet out the link when we're going to go live. I wish I could tell you a time right now, but we don't know. So it's probably going to be like early afternoon, closer to noon. So if you're around, check us out. If not, you can always get it on the podcast platform or anywhere where you get your podcasts. As always, BehindTheSteelCurtain.com should be your one-stop shop for all things Steelers. Dave, send us out.
Hey.
There it is. See you next week.